How to build a business when odds are stacked against you. That is the topic of the hour. Hello, good day, greetings, ciao, namaste, and salams to peeps from all around the world. Welcome to the live. Now, this particular series is called Impact 2.0, where we feature purpose-driven leaders making a dent in the universe in their own special way. Stick around till the end, and I promise you that you'll walk away with at least one, if not more, practical yet scrumptious takeaways from each of these live sessions, like an ice cream sundae topped with heavy whipped cream, melted dark chocolate, and a dash of gold dust. But most importantly, if you turn up live, you'll get a chance to ask each guest questions that are bugging you like an itch that can't be scratched. Now, my today's guest is very, very special. He's an Indian immigrant based in the US. He moved to the US as a student, co-founded Terminus, a multi-million-dollar MarTech company, and now has many other companies under his portfolio as well. He believes that a business without a community is just a commodity. So will you please put your virtual hands together to welcome my fantabulous guest, Sangram Vajre. Hey, Sangram.
Wow. I am good. Look at that. I feel so official right now. This is fantastic. Well done.
Thank you. Well, you deserve it. It's all you.
I think a lot of people do live, including me. And I think the thought that you put in the beginning of it, during it, I'm taking notes. This is fantastic.
Awesome. We've already got, hey, Kaleem. Hey, Sean. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, great.
Alrighty. All right, Sangram. What we're going to do that usually we start off with a quick fire question round, but today we are going to play the online game of rock, paper, scissors, which I'm sure you're already very familiar with.
Yep.
So what we're going to do is, if I'm sure everybody can see it over here, and we are both going to take picks as to obviously I can't see your what you choose, and you won't be able to see mine.
Okay.
All right. So I've made my pick. Now it's your turn to take your pick. I have chosen rock.
All right. I'm going to take paper.
Oh, well, you won that round. Okay, fine. Now I'm going to try to get into your head.
All right.
Okay. You're beating me hands down.
Okay, no,
fine.
I'm getting lucky.
Oh, there you go. One tie. Oh, look. Okay, I think we're playing mind games here.
Okay, all right. Totally are.
Oh, there you go. That's it. I lose. You won.
Well, I think it was definitely made up, because every time I've played this, I've lost it. So that's pretty fun.
Is it?
Yeah, especially when you play with your kids.
Oh yes, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that they will beat us to it. They're just so, they play this day in, day out. Well, you definitely won that game. So I believe it deserves a wiggle and a dance. And I think you may be familiar with this song.
We did it!
Oh, yeah? How did we get
We did it, Sangram. Do you know what it is?
Well, I thought you were going to play Rocky, but I didn't realize you were going to play We Did It.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Rocky was the second choice, but do you recognize the song? I'm sure you would.
Yeah, go ahead.
Doer the Explorer.
Oh, wow. Okay, I need to go back and look at it. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm sure if you were to bring your kids in the room, they would be like, Daddy, how can you not know this?
They will know it.
All right, awesome. All right, Sangram, it's time to get into the rice and curry of today's conversation. Now, can you imagine, Sangram, that I'm holding a pair of boxing gloves? Could you take these gloves from me and smash for me, and not my face, please, but some kind of entrepreneurship myth, a bogus strategy, or a misconception, and set the record straight once and for all?
Well, I think when I got into startup world, Amber, I thought it was probably going to be hard work. It was probably going to be just late nights. It's going to be a lot of different things. And quite frankly, this might be opposite to a lot of people, what people are thinking. I feel like not doing a startup is actually the worst thing you can possibly do for your career, because you learn so many things. So one of the myths that I've heard from people is that, well, startups is hard. You don't make enough money. It's not, it's something that everybody shouldn't try. And I feel the opposite. I feel everybody should at least try one time, trying to put all of their heart, mind, and soul into something and building something. I think the creative juices, the gifts that you have, they will come to life. A lot of people just don't give it a shot. A lot of people chicken out and think that, oh, this is not for me. And I've seen just the opposite. Now, obviously, I have had failed startups, and now I have something that's actually working really well, and I'm doing more now. And so I obviously have the itch of doing more businesses. But I wasn't like that. I came, as you said, I'm an Indian immigrant. I came, did my master's. I worked at Deloitte. I worked at companies like Salesforce. But not until recently when I realized that, oh my God, I have so much more to offer. And that particular part, if anybody feels that, and if they're not doing it, I think they're doing a disservice to themselves and the society in general.
Oh, awesome. So you know how they say entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but you're saying that once in your lifetime, you should give it a go.
Absolutely. I mean, to think about this, I mean, if you think about it, people say, well, marriages is not for everybody. Having kids is not everybody, right? I mean, everybody who has it will tell you the exact opposite. So if I and you who have done this, I don't think we're special. I don't think we're smarter than everybody else. It's just that we just took that plunge. We actually moved with faith and said, we're going to try this. We're going to give it everything we got. And the best thing that happened to me, Amber, going back to Stacked Against Us, was at that time when I started Terminus, or joined the two co-founders who already started it, I joined them 6 months into it. My wife wasn't working. We had our second baby, and it wasn't the best time to actually go and do a startup. It made no sense. So if I could do it at that point, I think I would just moved with the fact that if I didn't do it now, then when? And the best thing happened to me, Amber, was my wife saying to me, Manmeet, who said, you have 1 year. In 1 year, showed me this thing has legs. If she put that timeline on me, that made all the difference in the world. And that's what I advise all the time, like to businesses and startup founders, is like, put a timeline on it. Put something to say, you know what, I'm going to give everything I have for the next 6 months or 1 year or whatever timeline you have that you think is comfortable for you and your family, but it also stretches you a little bit. When you do that, two things happen. One, now you know this is not an indefinite thing. Now you know that you're not going to live on ramen noodles for the rest of your life. You know this is you're taking a chance for 1 year. And two, you show that you give yourself a chance. You give yourself an opportunity that you have been worrying about. I think a lot of people think this is going to be their life for the rest of the life. They're not going to have anything, but you have to give yourself a chance. And that's what really startups are all about.
Yeah, and you have to basically push yourself out of that comfort zone, isn't it? We cannot do this staying in a comfort zone.
Yeah, if you don't stretch yourself, here's one thing that I've always felt is that if you don't position yourself, somebody else will position you.
Yeah.
Simple as that. It's true for startups, it's true for product, it's true for individuals. If you feel like you have more to offer, and if you don't go about it, nobody else is going to give you the chance to do it. You have to go take a chance.
Absolutely. Michael is saying that there's never a good time to launch a startup.
There is never a good time. And there's always, at the same time, there's always a good time to launch a startup. And think about this. Last year, 2020, was the highest rate of startups that were launched in the world. 2020, biggest from a business perspective, the more businesses were launched in 2020 than many years combined, because people realized and the world changed around them, and there were new businesses created. People found themselves in, unfortunately, maybe out of a job. I think that's the greatest thing. As a matter of fact, Amber, I don't know if you know this, I was let go and fired, and in both times, it always ended up being a better thing for me when I was let go or fired. Because if I wasn't fired, I wouldn't have done something else. If I wasn't let go, I wasn't. And I think a lot of people stay in it. Oh no, it's okay. This is great. But honestly, that was the best thing that happened to me.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a similar story that when I was working in corporate in HSBC years ago, 14 years ago, and I was then made redundant. I took a redundancy package and left. But if it hadn't happened at that time, none of those things that came afterwards, which were various different ventures that I was a part of, it would not have happened had I stayed in the bank and just continued with that corporate life, which was a steady salary at the end of the month, but that's about it. But it also meant 3 hours of commute every day on the tube in London.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so let me ask you this: what was it that got you to go and say, you know what, I want to try something else. I want to try something new.
I think for me it was purely because by that time I'd had my second child as well, and for me it was that lifestyle did not suit me. I just knew that this isn't how I envisage my life to be, where I'm spending 3 hours commuting. Kids are, God knows, been raised by who else because they have to go to nurseries and all of that. And so I knew that, the time for working for somebody was over, and I had to work for myself so that I can design my life around what I'm doing.
Yeah. And what's interesting about that, and this is the part that I didn't realize it, honestly, Amber, was I feel I believe I work hard, and I want to work as hard as I can to get things done, but I'm able to create boundaries around my work schedule so that I'm able to take care of the most important things in my life that allows me, that fuels me to do it. I think people don't recognize how important and how freeing that is. So I wouldn't mind working on a Saturday, because I've done my part on a weekday to do the things I needed to do, to be at a tennis coaching class, to be do all these things. But if I had a job that didn't allow me to do that, now a lot of jobs do allow, and especially with people working from home, I hope people are taking advantage of it. But I think those things, I would have just said, you know what? Yeah, no, I'm not going to do it. This is my job. I got to do it. Now I'm able to have proper boundaries and recognize what's important when. And I know this is important, so I'm going to work on it this way. And even the kids recognize that. They're like, oh, Papa is working, and it must be important for that period of time, because when they're home, I stop everything and I'm there with them. So it's a difference that I didn't have before. I really didn't. I didn't appreciate that level of support that I can create in a family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, sometimes people feel that, that's an easy way out, starting on your own, whereas it's actually the very opposite. Yes, we get to work the hours we want, but like what you said, I would be, if I'm with the kids daytime, then I would be working late at night, but I felt it wasn't a burden on me, because I had a goal I wanted to achieve somewhere, and it meant that, okay, when kids go to bed, I start working, right?
It happens all the time now.
Yeah. Exactly. And so it wasn't an easy ride. I don't think it's an easy ride for anybody, but I think if you are determined, then you can make things happen.
Well, let me ask you this, and maybe even the people who are joining in right now, is what's easy? Like, when we say it's not an easy ride, honestly, I felt it's easier for me to be me now than it was ever before. If I wasn't doing what I do now, I think I would be walking on eggshells. I would be testing a few things. And again, everybody has a different personality to do that. But I feel I'm a very free thinking person. I want to try different things. I want to fail as hard as I can, so that I can see what works, and I'm going to push boundaries on things and see if it makes sense or not. And I never look back again and say, oh my God, why did it? It's okay. It's happened. Move on. That's who I am. So in a very, very, very corporate world, that's not how it goes. It happens. So it really depends on if you have the right culture, if you have the right people around you, if there's a way for you to be yourself. In your case, if it might be to be in a work culture that allows you to do that, go do it. Which is why I love and I advise almost everybody. I used to say no before, but now I say people should go and work at a startup, especially as early as they can. Put a timeline on it and actually recognize what the gifts they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just going to say, I can see so many fellow Peak community members here. Amin, Sean, Kaleem, Paul, welcome. Even Scott, so many people here.
Awesome.
Scott's actually got a question here. A different way to look at learning all these new skills. Why a startup, he's asking. He's saying there's a 90% failure rate. Many lose their life savings. Why not a more secure career than have a side hustle that you're not relying on to pay for your bills?
Well, here's the thing. I had a ton of side hustles, and with I'm right now as a business owner now, I have multiple startups, and so I have a different view of all of these right now. A side hustle is extremely, I think if there's a 90% failure rate in a startup, I think it's almost 100%, if not 99.99% in a side hustle. So let's put this in perspective. Okay. Just take Terminus as an example. I think for the first 3 years, I worked almost every single day. I still have pictures of my co-founder taking a picture of me sleeping on the couch in the office in between a sales call, where I knew when to wake up in between a sales call and do the pitch and go back to sleep. Like that was the first 2-3 years of a startup. And I look at that and say, okay, it took so much effort to build something that now could be run by many salespeople, can have we have about 250 plus people in the company and a completely new leadership team and all those things. Now, how can I imagine doing that as a side hustle? It will be such an impossible task to do. The amount of time it took for us to get the first customer after having a prototype product, to get them anywhere, the market was moved ahead of us. They would have changed the way. So can it work? Of course it can work, and it probably happens one in a million cases. But I think if you really want to do a startup, if your heart is set on something, and if you want to step the boundaries of what you're good at, I think the best way to do is to fully immerse yourself into for a period of time. So Scott, to your point, yeah, if you're going to lose your life savings and the world is gonna for you, then yeah, maybe it's not for that kind of person. But for 6 months or for a year, I feel people can manage it around it. And if you can have that in your back of mind, I'm going to give everything for 1 year. Here's another thing to respond to Scott. Because Manmeet gave me 1 year to make sure this thing has legs, otherwise I'll have to go find a real job. That's literally what they said to me. So I had 1 year to do this. So in that 1 year, we did multiple Flip My Funnel events that created an entirely new category and a movement. There was no way I could have done that as a side hustle. Like it just wouldn't have. And in the past, when I had a side hustle, I remember we would just meet on weekends, try to get things done. It took more time away from the family because I was trying to do 2 different things at the same time. It didn't really, and I was frustrated because things were not moving as fast. You lose interest, you don't see traction, you don't have time for feedback, you're distracted, and in many ways doing this service to your existing job as well as your hustle. So to me, either when you're ready, just jump in it, have faith in it, do it for a period of time where you know everything is going to be taken care of. And after that, then you have a choice to make. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel, go in the direction where you see it?
Yeah, so what I'm getting is that a lot of people do not have the focus and do not have a timeline in mind. You can't just say, oh, I want to do this, I want to start this, let's see if it goes somewhere. Like you have to have a goal in mind, like a timeline, like you said, I'm going to give it 6 months, I'm going to give it 12 months, and I'm going to give it my all to make sure that it picks up. And if not, then okay, I gave it 12 months and now I got to go find a job.
There are so many amazing founders out there today that are giving everything they got. Who am I to think that I can have a side hustle that can compete with somebody who's giving every day and night thinking about the problem? I think there's a big difference. Now, another side hustle could be like, let's say I'm a graphic designer. On the side, I do some graphic work. I make a couple of $1,000s a month. Now that's a different, but if you're trying to build a real business, that's what I think hopefully we're talking about. If you're trying to build a real business that changes the way certain things have, there are hundreds of people who would get jobs as a result of it. It's going to change the paradigm in your community, in your industry. That will take you to have some level of extreme focus to achieve that. Otherwise, a side hustle might give you a pocket change, but will probably not truly ever build a real business.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean saying priorities dictate where we spend our time. We have priorities either consciously or subconsciously. It's our job to determine what they are. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like Sean yesterday, you're like, man, I need to get some things here because all I have is a laptop and no mic. And now look at Amber. I have everything around it. Maybe I need to call you and say, what do I need to get things done here?
Yeah, this is actually a very old mic I invested in 10 years ago or something. I'm sure now there are all sort of new types of new technology, but it works. So, it's doing the job. So I'm cool with it.
Well, but Amber, the good thing is, even if it doesn't work, it looks good. That means people think, oh, she's professional. She knows what she's doing. So that's a good part. Good thing in that.
That's awesome. Also, just a quick side note that we are streaming to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. If for some reason your LinkedIn stream plays up, you can always join us on YouTube at bit.ly/spreading ideas with Amber Khan. Alrighty, let's get back into this conversation. So Sangram, we've already spoken about, how you came to US and as a student. And so let's talk about, we've been talking about entrepreneurship, starting a business. It's already difficult enough for anybody. Somebody who is even native to the country, native to the culture. But what about for an immigrant who's new to the culture, probably new to the language as well, does not know the system or the way around? They've already got so much going against them. Where do they even begin? And from your experience, what lessons could you impart for those who are in this position and thinking, is it even worth it? Is it even worth, because everything's going against me?
Yeah. Well, Amber, I'm gonna ruffle some feathers here because I feel like I've heard that part, and at some point, to me, that one was my victim mentality around, I can't do it, I'm not one of them, or whoever that is, or I don't have a background like that. Like, the number of excuses, unfortunately, in human mind is capable of creating thousands of them at a nanosecond rate. So for me, it was, I had to blur my vision. What I mean by that is that when I walk in a room, there was a time when I would recognize that I'm the only Indian immigrant sitting in that room. And that would actually cause me to almost get stuck in my own way, in my own ideas, in the way I speak, in the way I do things. And it actually did that for a number of years. It might be hard to believe now for you and others who know me for the last year or two, is that it was very hard for me to speak up in a meeting. It was very hard for me to raise my hand and say, you know what, that's BS. I don't think that's a great idea. Or here's a suggestion. It was very hard for me because I was always trying to figure out, am I sitting right? Am I wearing the right? Am I taking notes? Am I doing all the things that you need to check the box to be a professional in a sense? And there was a moment where I felt, I was literally at a point where I felt like, if I don't speak up now, who will? If I don't speak up now, who will? And it changed everything for me. After that day, when I spoke and I realized that people really don't care about it. I'm the one who has filters. I'm the one who has the blurry eyes. Ultimately, and if they have it, it's their problem. But if you have work ethic, if you have a proper, like a good heart where you're trying to do the right thing, and if you put everything you got, people see it, and people want to be surrounded by people like that. So I feel, in a world that is so divided right now on so many different levels, I feel I don't want to be the one having a victim mentality that, oh, here are all the excuses, because we already have enough excuses, in life. Why have more? Why have race, religion, culture, all these things as filters? If you take that off and move in, it almost, now I have no vision. Like, I feel like I'm colorblind. I'm blind to anything other than, if somebody's doing a great work, I want to just hug them, give them every praise that they can, and actually drive things forward. I think a lot of people are using this as a victim card more than a business card.
So, I mean, if you were to, you obviously started a career working with various different organizations, and eventually you co-founded Terminus. If you were to start from scratch today, if tomorrow, let's say, I don't know, everything was to go away what you have, and you have to start from scratch, what would be your next step?
Oh, I love that question. I was having a conversation with Brian Halligan, who's the CEO of HubSpot. They're investors in Terminus, and we were talking about this idea of, I asked literally the same exact question. I'm going to borrow his question, so giving credit to his thinking. I asked the same question, and I said, if you were to start another company, what would you do? And his answer was, right now, it's not about a great product. Ultimately, you should have a great product. You must have a great product. But it is about business transformation. What can you create that will transform the entire business and the entire industry? So I look at things now and saying, when we did Terminus, the thing that was very interesting is that we were under a software company in a sea of 8,000 or 9,000 companies that Scott Brinker put that in his LumaScape. But it's crazy to rise above the noise. So if I have another idea, so what? Like, somebody else can make it cheaper, faster than me all day long. Somebody can raise more money than me, who has more pedigree than me, to go do that thing. So if I wait for that, and if I think like that, I would never be able to move on. But if I think completely opposite, going back to your very first question where you said, well, what about culture? What about what you don't know? I think that's a blessing. Because I don't know the rules of the game, I can make my own rules. And that is the part where it's like, so now when I know a startup, now I didn't know how to raise money. Like, I never raised money before. And I'll just go up and pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, here's the business plan, and here's what I'm looking for. And they're like, well, I don't know, you should have talked to this and that. And before I knew it, we already had raised money, because I didn't go through the formal channel of things. I just went about it with full passion and heart, because I believed in something. So I feel like many of these things, if I were to start something right now, again, it will be take something that's already there and completely challenge the status quo on that. Take something that's there and change it completely and transform it. Let's look at Peak Community. I've been part of communities, and I'm like, let's take a community, if that's where my heart is. I love building communities, and change the way communities are built. And we are just scratching the surface on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is that we do not have to invent something totally new to be able to succeed. We can start with what's already out there and transform that experience into a new experience for the audience. And
in a way does, right? Like you think about Uber didn't do anything different than they take the existing model and said, I'm going to do it differently. It's a new business idea. So I want to challenge everybody to think about whatever is your greatest problem, the pain point that you think, oh, that should be better. Don't talk about that at a coffee table, in a dining room table, and just let it go. See something that you feel that could be better. That's an opportunity for you to now take a moment and say, oh, is this big enough for me to put some time into it? And if it is big enough to put time into it, would I actually go do it? Now, those are the steps somebody has to take. But every business, Amber, I think you and I both know, is literally an incremental change to the previous business. But for somebody, that is an exponential value. And that's where businesses are created.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask, because a lot of people, especially youngsters or anybody going into business right now, they think that, okay, we can't have this business going without some VC investment. So we need venture capital. We need something. We can't do this. So I guess my next question is that, are there business types which definitely cannot do without VC investment? And can we really grow a business without a VC investment?
Well, I think that's maybe the other part that I would change, that the next company I do won't actually raise money and actually be bootstrapped. Many reasons for that. When you're building a new category, which means you are changing in such a big way, like, again, let's just take Terminus as an example, or Uber as an example, or even Drift as an example, which is changing the entire industry. I think you need capital for that to make go big, right? Because your idea is so transformational in nature. Now, if you're starting a new agency out there, if you are literally trying a new form fill process that actually makes something better incrementally, and it can be an automated thing, you probably don't need that. Case in point, Pardot. Pardot was, when I ran marketing, we were up to like 10 million in revenue, and we got they get acquired. I was brought in after to run marketing at Pardot for ExactTarget, but it was bootstrapped for 7 years. They didn't raise anything other than I think a couple of million from a bank as a loan. So it was completely bootstrapped, and they got bought for about $100 million by Salesforce at that time.
Wow.
So there are cases all over the place where people have to choose. But here's a very interesting thing, Amber, that I've learned about fundraising. If you're not aligned with the people who you're raising money from, then you're going to have a harder time to drive the business that you want to drive.
Yeah.
Now, there's this weird thing of like leaving a job, starting a company where you feel all free, and then you raise money, and now all of a sudden you're again reporting into something, and you're trying to do something for somebody, but your heart is a different place. So whoever is thinking about raising money, whatever amount of money, it doesn't really matter. You have to recognize that you're building or bringing somebody who would have a stake in the company. That means that person will have a voice in the company. That means you'll have to play along with them. And if that's not what you're doing, I think bootstrapping is the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess if you're bootstrapping, so let's say we just spoke about we're not going for VC funding, we're bootstrapping. Now, what would you say the next top 3 steps are to grow this business? Now we've got an idea, we know it's got legs, right?
Yep.
And how do we now, what steps should we take to grow that business to get to a point where we're now able to, maybe if we wanted to go for a VC investment, we could have that conversation at that time?
Few things that come to mind. One, you can't do it alone. You will burn out. It's just the nature of it. I've done multiple where I've realized that I thought I could do it all. I think I knew what needed to be done. So why actually bring in partners or anybody on? It's just like, I'll just be an order giver, and people would do it. You will burn out much faster than you think. I have burned out like that several times. So it requires you to have the humility to understand that you need to build a team to build something. So I think somebody said this many moons ago, that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further than anybody else, like, make sure you bring somebody along with you. That is a very big part of it. So having a team, that may be a co-founder, a partner, or a team that you and they trust each other, where you actually are going in as a team. Because let's face it, startups and founders, it's a very lonely place. You are there by yourself. You have your own worry. You're waking up in the middle of the night thinking about an idea and working on something. There's nobody. And sometimes you may have success, but there's nobody to share that success with. It's very sad in many ways. So you better have a team together that will be along with you when times are tough, and also to celebrate with you, because both things are very much going to happen if you're actually doing something like this. That's one. Make sure that you have a team. The second part is, as much as possible, I remember the first 100 customers of Terminus, I was on every single call. I was a salesperson, I was a marketer, I was everything on it, because I needed to understand what it is that we're working towards. How is it changing? You change your messaging every single time you're doing. I'll do a pitch at 11, I have a different message. I learn something at noon, have a different pitch, and test if that change that I just made worked or not. That level of iterative thinking, you need to be like all into that one. So be sure that it's ultimately going to keep changing no matter what you thought it was in the beginning, and you need to be open to that. And here's the third part. This is probably the hardest of all, Amber, is the problem that you thought you're solving, or the way you thought about it, may not be the problem you end up building a product around.
True.
Right? Like, you may think this is the product I'm building and this is what it's going to do. And you have a couple of customers and you realize that, oh, it's a vitamin. It's not a painkiller. And all of a sudden you realize that, oh, I have this passion for this product. And that's where I try to pull founders out of it, is that, no. You should never fall in love with the product. The day you fall in love with the product, you will be blindsided with what actually you need to do for the industry and the customers and your team. You'll completely blindside yourself. Never, ever fall in love with the product that you're building. Fall in love with the problem that you're solving all the time. You fall in love with that, then you can figure out what to do. So, like, again, I'll take the example at Terminus. We acquired 4 different companies in the last 6 years because we didn't think we had the best product all the time. We knew we understood the problem better than anybody else. So when time or whenever opportunities arise, we would go and acquire a company or partner with somebody or bring in the team and actually continue to build, because we want to solve the problem. We have a long view of things, not a short term. And I think that the reason it's the hardest is because egos come into this. People, as you start doing something, you'll have your ego starts inflating. Mine did too, really big, and that actually starts getting you to a point where you think that what you have is the best way and the right way to do things, and you understand the product better than anybody else. And at a point, but I was at a point where I thought I understood better than the customer is paying me. Not true. Not true. So it takes a lot. It takes a ton of humility rounds in order for you to actually go through it. So those are some of the things that come to mind.
So I guess it's about constant feedback from your customers as well, because they will tell you what problems they're facing, right? And the problem may have evolved since when they started working with you, and now. And so would you say that as the problems arise, as you hear from your clients what problems they're facing, is it at that point that you have to evaluate what your product offers, and can you offer it within your product, or should you be partnering up with others so that you can provide a solution to those additional products?
So two things on that as well. One, never give your product away for free.
Okay.
Big problem. If you and never get feedback from somebody, you ended up giving it for free. Because if somebody's not going to pay for your product, then your product actually didn't really have a ton of value, and they would never actually do the work. So never ever give away your product for free to people, because that's just not, people would never value that. They would never take the time. If they don't want to pay even a dime for your product, then they would never actually do anything with it. So that's one. The other part of launching and figuring this part out, Amber, is when you go ahead and start getting customers' feedback, you have to understand where the customer is in their life cycle. So for example, if it's a new thing, a new category, now you have to make sure that you're talking to early adopters, people who stand in line to get an Apple iWatch. If that's the kind of people you think are going to buy your product first, then make sure you don't talk to somebody who stays in a suburbs and wait until a deal is happening, because they're not the right customer. Even though they may be buying your product at some point, they're not the right first customers for you. So big difference is you got to know who you're going after. Are they the same type of people, but somebody's an early adopter versus somebody's actually a laggard and they would do it? That was a big thinking for us, right? Initially, for us, it was like, this makes sense to this person, and this person says that this doesn't make any sense. How is that possible? They both are in marketing. They both are running marketing automation. They both have 10 years of experience. How could one say this is the best thing under sun, and the other say, oh, I don't think it makes sense? And the difference was, this one was early adopters. We want to find more like this person until the entire industry is adopting, and then this person will start saying the same thing, but it's going to take time for it. So when people say, oh, I want to figure out the ideal customer profile and put everybody in the same bucket, in a startup world, it doesn't work that way. In a startup world, you have to be very particular about who you are talking to, which is why the first 100 customers, I talked and made sure that I'm selling the first 100 times every single customer, so we understood who we are going after. And I was then later able to like literally sniff through, oh, I know they're the right company, I know they're the right size, I know they can afford our business, but they're not going to stay with us too long because they don't think the way this person thinks or this company thinks.
Absolutely. That's really good to know, because I think a majority of the startup businesses, that's where we struggle. That who is the idea, who should we be going after? Because it's very easy to say it's everyone under the sun, right?
Yeah.
But what you said, that it's more about honing in who exactly is your audience. So would you say when you spoke about the first 100 clients, would you say that initially you would just make sure that you get the clients and then you study them over time, or it's the other way around?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of it, right? Because initially you will want to talk to any and everybody who would willing to listen, right? In the early days when you're putting something out, but that's different than they being your customer. So the customers are the people that this is where businesses actually win or break. A lot of times you may have heard about this most companies have a leaky bucket problem, which means they get the customer, they do all the stuff, they work so hard, and then they kind of wash off in the next 3-6 months. So you spend a lot of time, money, energy, resources in acquiring a customer, but you immediately lost it on the other hand. But you're so focused on that you're trying to get more of them, not realizing that you probably could spend some more energy keeping them or recognizing you're getting the right people. That is the part that kills most startups. It's not the passion, it's not the product doesn't work, or it's that they did not have a process to fix the leaky bucket. And that's a big challenge for every founder, because we all are so excited about building and talking to somebody new about it that we don't spend time maintaining it and making sure that what the promises are delivered on, which is obviously very hard in the early days of a startup. That is something is really goes as a combination. I feel, Amber. Now you have done startups and you're building it, and I'm curious to get how do you see that?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's making sure that I deliver on the promise, because the last thing you want to do is that all the work that you put in to gain those clients is for them to say, well, we tried you, but you didn't deliver, or we thought you were going to do this, but this didn't happen, and you lose that, and then you're back to square one. Whereas, and it's not about that, the product wasn't right or the service wasn't right, but more to do with, did we actually deliver on what we promised, and what kind of experience did we provide doing that? I mean, for me, it's still a learning process. I'm learning from you every day. How to go about
we all learn from each other, and I think that is the part that is, again, another maybe a trap, if you will. Is the inability to learn different things that are happening and working, because you're trying to build something, and I see a lot of people, like, again, going back around, stacked against us is our own self, our own challenges, our own understanding of like how certain things work. Everyone who understands the problems should try to fix it, but should never assume that they fully understand the problem. I think there's a big difference. Like, if you have if you see a problem, you have a passion for it, go try to solve it, but never ever assume that you fully understand it, because the day you assume that, you'll stop learning.
Awesome.
And it's game over.
Yeah, that's very good advice, actually. That's a writer downer.
I'm learning on that every day.
Okay, let's quickly go through some of the comments here. Mudassir is saying, yes, fall in love with the problem space and not the product itself. Boom.
Boom. Yeah, love that.
We've got Paul, who's saying, I do not believe that post-COVID we will be creating startups like we used to. We will move to co-created ideation model where the business justification has been done. With the community, you will have that support. What are your thoughts on that, Sangram?
Well, it's good to hear from Paul. It's been a while we all heard from Paul, as we used to back in the day. So lots of love to you, man. I think he has a really good point, really interesting point. And I do believe that co-creation, or more, I won't use the word co-creation, but I would say the co-distribution is definitely there. So for example, right now, let's say somebody is actually building something that is really good. You have a choice to make. Or do you want to be a point solution where you're selling a small problem to maybe somebody who this is your third or fifth priority, if it's a priority, and actually try that? You're going to read a lot more muscle, a lot more money, a lot more energy to do that. Or you become part of a ecosystem where you say, you know what, we solved this problem, and you have these 4 things that you can play around with. Obviously, the latter one will give you more insight into it. You probably will make more money. It will create more distribution for it. Now, Paul also brings up the idea of co-creation, which is super interesting, and I feel more people are starting to do that. Businesses, it's very hard to co-create. The reason businesses, it's hard to co-create, although it is actually the way it should be, because it's an abundance mindset that Paul is talking about. It's hard to co-create because people inherently don't fully trust. So for example, if somebody came to you, Amber, and said, all right, Amber, let's partner up. You're like, yeah, let's partner up. Let's do this thing. Let's go distribute this thing. And they say, but hey, Amber, let's partner up and I'm going to tell you in your business what you should do differently, and maybe you should not do this and that. Now you got a problem, because now somebody's changing your business that you have created. And that's when the issue happens. So co-creation, if two different businesses exist, is very hard. Now co-creation, founders or partners that exist, or part of a bigger ecosystem all day long. Another case in point, I'll go back to our own example. We acquired Ramble Chat, like a chat platform. We acquired an analytics, Bright Funnel company. Then we acquired Sixter, which was an email signature. We initially started with ads. If you think about them in isolation, it would make no sense why a company that ran ads in the early days is acquiring a chat company, it's acquiring an analytics company, it's acquiring an email signature company, it's acquiring a intent company. Zero sense in the world. But when you put them, all these point solutions together, now we have co-created, to use Paul's word, co-created something that is a platform that you can then sell to. Now that is a really big idea, and I wish more founders would be open to that, but I don't see people having that abundance mindset early on, because they're falling in love with the product and not the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think that as you went into acquiring these companies, it comes from the knowledge of knowing what problems your customers were facing? So you knew that, okay, there is this problem they have mentioned, and there's got to be a solution for it. And instead of developing your own, you knew the solution existed, and you co-created, acquired them. And is that is that the thinking behind?
A lot of times it is. We're looking at our customers and saying, well, we would spend a ton of time once we acquire the customer, in figuring out what makes them tick, what gets them going, what would get them promoted, what do they spend their time. We even do, I think I've shared that in Peak Community, we do a customer in the month. We would bring in a customer, have them now virtually share day in a life, what tools they use, what makes them. And when we hear what we really get good at once you start doing this is we should get really good at pattern recognition. You start with pattern recognition of, oh, I hear this over and over again. People love what we do, but they're having difficulty showing ROI. They love what we do, but they're difficulty showing ROI. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if they are not able to show ROI, 8 months from now, they're going to churn. So that's led us to let's just go and buy this analytics company that we use to show ROI, so that we can give them a full package of it. That fixed a problem. Then we keep hearing that, well, people are not doing full attribution of all the things that they get into, because marketing automation, you send an email, it gives you attribution to it. That's why marketing automation got sticky. Well, what did we do? And then we realized that, oh, chat is a very underutilized, every company wants it in B2B, but it's underutilized thing, and it's a point solution. Let's just go and acquire it. We used it, we acquired it, it became part of it, and now we're able to sell it as part of a package. So imagine a customer on the other side who is dealing with 5 different tools and technologies, 5 different service contracts, 5 different areas to focus on, and sometimes probably doesn't use the 3 of them because he's focused on the 1 or 2. For them, this would make perfect sense. So I think it's a process of pattern recognition that we need to get really good at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to ask you this because I was at that in that position as well, and I know a lot of startups usually are, when, as you talked about, that we shouldn't go all alone on it. So what are the what are the most important team members you need to have on your team starting off? Because of course we have to think about the budget and resources, all of these things. And who should we start off with when it comes to building a team?
The first person we hired at Terminus was, and it still is, in our company, Sydney, who was a customer success manager. That's the first person we hired. We did not hire a salesperson. We did not hire a marketing person. That's what we hired. Going back to supporting the case we just talked about, we didn't want a leaky bucket. We would rather have somebody focused on customers, because as founders, we wouldn't be on it. We are always going out pitching, raising money, doing all these things. We need somebody to wake up every day thinking about our customers and making them successful. So we hired. Same thing in Peak Community. We hired Eden. It's not that we have a lot of money in Peak Community right now, but we hired Eden because I know I'm not going to be in it every day the way I want it to be, but I want somebody to wake up about it so I can be aware of it and actually do the things that I can do. That is my sweet spot. So having a customer success, which is contrary to probably everything most people think about hiring sales and marketing, is ultimately the most important thing I feel for a founder who is able to go out and do the marketing and sales themselves. Now, if the founder is not a marketing salesperson, I can recognize and empathize that they might need somebody like that, but you don't need to hire. One of the biggest mistake, Amber, I've seen companies do, they go ahead and hire very senior level people very quickly, thinking that will change the game. Well, if you have a senior level person, the first thing they're going to say is that I need to hire a junior level person to do what they're talking about. So it's a cycle. I tell you should really hire a C-level, even a VP level person until you hit like 10 million in revenue.
Wow.
It just makes sense. So that is a shift that I had initially. Then I thought, well, let's hire the best people. But we need doers right now. We need drivers right now. As long as I'm the dreamer, that's okay. If we hire a bunch of dreamers and there's no doer driver, we got a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's the biggest takeaway for anybody who's watching this, whether live or recorded, is that if you are the visionary, you need doers and drivers in your business, because without them, will be just dreaming and envisioning what the business could be like, and nobody's doing the work.
Nobody's doing it. And you have yourself. It's funny, in the CMO group, we created in the emerging CMO group, I created a CMO course where I talk about these three things: dreamer, doer, and driver. And what's interesting about it is that I know I'm a dreamer, which means that I'm going to come up with ideas. And if I don't have a doer and a driver with me, then I'm going to frustrate myself and everybody around me, because I'm just spouting ideas day in and day and night. Same thing. That does not mean, and I want to be very careful of that, that does not mean that you always have to be a dreamer to run a company or be a CEO. What you need to have is be self-aware who you are. So for example, you think about Tim Cook. He's not a dreamer. Steve Jobs was the dreamer, right? Tim Cook, he's not a dreamer. You read some of the stuff. He is a doer, meaning he gets it, what needs to happen, and then he would just execute like nobody. He was a CEO for that reason. You talk about Sheryl Sandberg. She's a driver. So what it means is that you don't really need to be one or the other, because we kind of think, oh, you have to be like Steve Jobs, you have to be like Mark Benioff. You don't really have to be like anybody. You just have to be you and be aware of it and get the other two people so that you can actually have a great team. So if you are in a team right now, you're building a team, just quickly recognize who is a dreamer, doer, driver. You need those three. A dreamer is idea. A driver is always have the sense of urgency to move things forward. A doer is get stuff done. You trust that person to get it done. You don't have those three people, I think you're going to see massive issues later on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got more. Hey, Sunita saying, what great advice. Hire doers and drivers. I think a lot of startups miss out on that because thinking that what you said, either we do it all by ourselves, because we're not everything. We cannot be a dreamer, driver, and doer at the same time. We'll burn out, basically. We'll burn out.
You would burn out. You would also very quickly realize, Amber, that this is another very hard thing for especially founders and things who want to start something new all the time. You recognize that you're not even complete. The doer driver, this combination actually is a completion of what you want to achieve. So for example, if you just put a brand new idea in the world, no businesses would ever start. We'll still be at our coffee table talking about the problems in practice, right? Like, it would never happen. You need that driver mindset. You need the doer mindsets in order for that to, like, hey, you know what? Enough drinking coffee. Let's go and do this, right? Like, that is the part that is. So I really believe that if you can build a team around you, very self-aware, that understands their strengths and the areas they depend on others for, I think we would actually have a more fulfilling time doing whatever business we're trying to run.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean has just shared a quote: "The only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership." I love that. Actually.
Yes, it is 100% hard. It's not everybody's thing, and you have to really recognize it. So, yep, agree.
Yeah, That is true, actually, that building partnerships is not easy. But what would you say, how important it is to build partnerships in business?
Well, so there are two types of partnership. Like I've listened to Dave Ramsey, and I think what he's talking about maybe is partnerships that are like co-founders. I think it's like marriage, really hard, really hard. My wife and I are reading a book on marriage right now. It talks about the fact that marriages, it is the hardest form of ministry in a way. If you think about that, like, because you're constantly with each other, and you're in a way like you're not ministering to each other in different ways, either supporting or not supporting, and it's really hard. So founders, when you think about founders, that's exactly what it is. You're constantly in each other's hair, you're constantly challenging each other, and if you do not have the right founders with you, you're actually going to have a lot of internal challenges. You will stop focusing on the customers and start focusing on internal issues. You stop working on the business, you're in the business all the time. So those are the challenges that will come out of it. So that's a big point, and I think that's where Dave Ramsey is. And so in my case, with Terminus, the two founders, they were technology founders. That's what they did, tech, and I was the marketing sales. So it worked out great, but not without challenges. Very openly, very hard things to figure out, especially if you've never worked with the person before. But then over a period of time, you mature. And I think that's another thing that startups will do really fast. It will mature you really fast. It will help you understand the importance of grace. It will expose the deepest bad things in you. It will also show the best of what you have. So it's a really self-realization process going through a startup.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Now, Sangram, I can't have you on the live and not ask you, what role did content play in growing Terminus, if any at all? And how did you use content?
Well, initially, thanks to LinkedIn and Twitter and all, like, you don't have to be a journalist to write a content piece. That kept me back, going back to excuses like, oh, I need to have to be perfect. Oh, I'm writing it, I got my name on it, and if it's not properly spelled, nobody cares. Really nobody cares. I think people who think that, oh, I need it to be perfect, I'll just look at my content for the last 3 weeks. You'll find typos, you'll find errors, and you will still find 1,000 people engaging with it. So just get over that part of it. I think people are more forgiving and understand that it's in the moment, and they would rather have you raw than actually be so edited that it has no life in it. So that being said, I think I would say that almost every category out there that is new is built on the backbone of a community. And when you think about the community, it obviously has to have a ton of content and thought leadership in it. I've talked this, as you said earlier, without a community, you're simply a commodity. I've said that, and I believe in that, and I've seen the fruits of it. But it's really interesting to even look back for companies like Salesforce. They started Dreamforce. That's the community. Why didn't they call it Salesforce? HubSpot started Inbound. Why didn't they call it HubSpot? Gainsight started Pulse. You think about Drift started Hypergrowth, or in their podcast Seeking Wisdom. Terminus started Flip My Funnel. So when you start looking at, like, wait a minute, what's going on over here? Why is everybody building communities that is different in name from them when they actually have it there? And the answer to that is because they're trying to build a community. Well, why a community and how? Because they can start posting everything everywhere, or they can actually bring everybody someplace and actually create a narrative in the marketplace. That is the part of what a content creator should think about. What narrative are you creating? Not I'm posting every other day, just trying to check the box. No. What is the narrative that people are thinking you're creating? What narrative you have in your mind? So when I think about posting and stuff, I have a narrative. I know I'm talking to marketers. I know I'm talking to entrepreneurs. I don't talk about politics. I don't talk about other things that I have no knowledge of. So I have a narrative and a market that I feel like I can serve as well as I can. So I'm focused on that. So people, when they create content, I hope people start thinking about what narrative, or asking themselves that question, what narrative or what story they're telling to the world.
Right. So two things I take away from it: that you should be very clear on what your narrative is for the growth of your business, and who does it help.
Yes.
So bringing those two together to build a community around that.
It is extremely important to do that. The other part, Amber, I think that helped us in the early days was creating a clear picture of success. So remember the flip my funnel movement, we showed people, here's a traditional funnel. It's upside, it's there, and it shows that less than 1% of the leads turn into customer. Everybody knows that sucks. Here's a new funnel. And that funnel shows that you don't need to do that. You can go after the right accounts and you can engage them on their terms and turn them into advocates. We created a real picture of success. And I think that is the part, when you think about content and narrative, we need to let people go on a journey that drives them to somewhere from some place. But in order to do that, you have to start with the problem at hand. If people agree and nod their heads and say amen to the problem, then you can actually go and take them on a journey to the promised land. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. You can't show a promised land without the problem being so acute that people feel shackled in it and know that I need a solution. And when you do that, I think that's when you actually build a true community.
Yeah, absolutely. The problem has to be big enough.
Big enough. Painful enough.
Painful enough. Exactly. Painful enough for them to be wanting a solution for it. Because if it's not, then you can just live with it and say, when you have slight headache and you're thinking, I mean, it's okay, in a few hours it will go away, compared to having, I don't know, fever, and you're thinking, no, I need to get back to work. I need to find a solution. I need to, I need medicine so that I get better. So painful enough. So that we want a solution to solve that problem. I love that, and I think that's a big one. It's very obvious, although it seems very obvious, but the majority of people in business overlook it. I myself as well. It's always a learning curve that you need to understand: is the problem big enough that people want a solution for? Because if not, then it's you're not going to grow. You may be able to get few clients, and that's about it.
There are lots of books. There are lots of products on the shelf. Very few books are read by people, and very few products are used by people. That actually changes the meaning of life in many ways. So I think you are absolutely right, Amber. I think that is an area where people are trying to go after big problems, which is great, not necessarily going after the most painful problem, which will change the course of history for that particular segment of people that you're trying to serve.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, let's just quickly go through some last few comments. Sunita is saying, I was so happy to be attending this live. I really want to follow this advice just right. Don't worry about the typos.
Yep, I'm a good example of all the problems in the world. No problem.
Paul is saying, with the market that is yearning for entrepreneurs and startup, the time is now. That is absolutely true. Time is now, especially when they say, when in downturn is the best opportunities come, because now people are facing new problems that they want solutions for. Look at how many people are now selling masks.
Yes, it is unbelievable. Now, this is the difference between, where the fidget spinners came out, where everybody was going for. So here's the part that I want a lot of. I know enough now to know people. You have to understand when you're earlier in the market or before the market, or you're just taking the opportunity right now, or you're creating a lasting business. Big difference in all three of them, right? So somebody who just figured out how to put a mask, create masks, they should recognize that it's a year or 2 year kind of program. It's not a lifelong sustainable business. Well, so what they should be, if I'm running that mask business today, I would look at that and say, what am I learning in this business? I'm going to learn how to distribute. I'm going to learn how to fast create something at a mass production level. I'm going to figure out how to price some things very quickly. So now my job is that's why I should not fall in the love with mask if you're a business owner for that. You should fall in the love with the problem you just solved, which is mass distribution at a hyper speed in a pandemic. Great. Now take that and now figure out where is another painful problem that people have, that there is less distribution, where you can put into your stuff, where people can't figure out the right pricing for it, where you can get it done cheaply enough in order to have profit margins. Now that is a different business. So I love when businesses come up. I just want to make sure that founders recognize and self-select and assess. And before, like fidget spinner was a great example. A lot of companies became fidget spinner companies after it was actually up the way, all the way in the hype, and it was coming down, and they lost a lot of money. So if somebody says, I'm going to start creating masks by the end of this year, probably not a great idea, right? But if somebody just did that, they now have a great opportunity to create another business right when this business might actually start going down in a month or year to come.
So I guess my takeaway from that is that the product is not what's going to make you successful in life. It's the lessons you learn from starting a business, and you take those skills into whatever next you do. Whatever next problem that you solve, those skills are what's going to make you successful, and not particularly the product on its own.
It's hardly the case when that actually happens. It does, but it's hardly when it happens. Really, you're learning something that now you can take and build and do something. A lot of people want to start over again and try in a new way, that not using any of those skills that they just learned. I think that's where they make a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, folks, it is now that time of the interview for us. And you may be thinking, what is it? Gossip time, or share the fun pickup lines time, or tell an embarrassing joke time? Unfortunately, we are not that type of a show yet. Well, not yet anyway. But what it is time for is...
Love that.
It's the 48-hour challenge time. So Sangram, this is where I asked you to share what is that one thing that our viewers and listeners can implement when it comes to moving the needle on their business in the next 48 hours that doesn't cost an arm and a leg or requires a large team to execute it.
Maybe can I give you more than one?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right, number one, if you are a business today and if you have customers, spend as much time as you possibly can. Pick 3 customers. Let's just be very specific. Take 3 customers and spend the time with them that actually churn, that you lost, and actually spend time with them and learn what happened. Like really go deep. Don't delegate that. Pick up the phone, have that conversation, learn from it. You will learn more about your business in those 3 conversations than whatever else in meetings, executive meetings you're actually having in your company. One, I saw some comments from Sanita and others about content. Go just do it, write it, create a narrative in your head. Make sure that your narrative is very clear. The how it will come about, don't worry about it. Just start doing that. It will come to life. But have the narrative, know who you're talking to, and know what problem you're trying to solve or address, or what skill that you're trying to offer, or service that you want to serve the community with. Know that once that's clear, the words will automatically come on paper. And the beauty of Twitter and LinkedIn is nobody remembers what happened 5 minutes ago. There are tons of my posts where I got like 5 comments or something, and there are posts that have thousands of it. But people don't remember 5, people remember the 1,000. That's the beauty of it. So relieve yourself of the shackles that people have on their mind. Oh, that won't happen. And just go do that thing. So that's second, for people who want to create content, company, whatever. And third, life. I feel like this is a great time to pick up 3 people in your life that you haven't been in touch with, and you haven't just connected with them, that you should. Pick up the phone and have those 3 people. I think those 3 things will transform not only your business, not only how you create content, but also your life, because that is where great things happen.
Awesome. Well, there's been so many great takeaways from this live. We're gonna go nuts taking the clips out. Takeaway clips, takeaway lessons from this live, and you can also find all these bite-sized takeaways on our channel over here, bit.ly/spreading ideas with Amber Khan. Now, Sangram, where can people find you? Where would you like them to go next after watching this live?
If there was any value in this thing, whenever people watch, just connect with me on LinkedIn and tell me what is the one thing they learned from this conversation with Amber and I think that'd be fantastic. So just connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, just tag Sangram, connect with Sangram on LinkedIn, and of course he runs an awesome community. It's _community. I am also part of it, and so many others that you saw on the live today. It's a great community for marketers, and especially if you're looking to grow your marketing career, or for entrepreneurial advice. It's full of some chock-a-block awesome people who are always willing to share and support each other, and that's the beauty of a community. And you can check it out at _community. All right, Sangram, thank you so much for being on this live with me and bringing your awesome self and sharing your genius with all of us.
Well, thank you for making it so much fun. Kudos to you. I'm taking notes from the way you've actually done this live. Fantastic job. And thank you for like Paul and Sunita and all the folks, Sean and others that are Talim on this. It's fun to actually see our group. I wish one day we'll actually come together and meet up again. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh yes, yeah, physical meetup. That would be really, really awesome. And I'm hoping it will happen sometime near in the future. But what I'm also hoping to do more of these with you in this coming year. This is not a one-off. But until then, toodaloo for now.